Hello everyone and welcome back. I know it's been a long time again, but it's about time I put some videos back on YouTube. There's been a few changes, life changes and project changes, so there may not be some of the same content as there was before. Today I just wanted to kick off a simple one. I've got to strip the top end off an engine. I've got to do some porting and polishing, so we're going to start covering a little bit of motorcycle engine tuning in this video, which will carry on. I'm going to try and do a bit of a series with the bikes that I'm now currently building. More of that will be elaborated on in another video, and it will explain why there's been a gap again in the content that's been uploaded. It's one of those, like with the Polo, there's been a bit of a hold there. It might have to move again, plus funding, you know. I haven't got an infinite amount of money, job change, and also not having a laptop for like a good 12 months that functions properly and will actually take the video editing program that I use. So today it's a bit of just a small comeback video. Just want to try and get back in the swing of things, so I hope you enjoy this. It's mainly going to be a recording. I might put some narration over the top of it afterwards, or I might just talk along like I used to. So let's crack on with this. Let's get back into the swing of it. Right, what we've got here is basically a Chinese copy of a CG125 engine. This is out of one of the bikes that I've currently built. This had a gearbox issue, so that will be being done in another video where we strip the crankcases, get that apart, because it'll need flushing out. It's been outside for a while. I've got to admit I've neglected it, but for now what I want to do is get this top end off. That's going to involve taking the rocker arms off. We've got to take the push rods out. I'm going to leave the valves in. I haven't got my spring compressor home with me at the moment. Cylinder head's going to be lifted. We're going to check the cylinder bore for wear. We're going to check the piston, and then I'll explain what is going to be done to this, mainly the cylinder head. There's not a lot that you can do with the barrel. A little bit of stuff we can do on the piston. That's a little bit more involved for what is going to be covered today, but it's just going to be a bit of a simple and basic explanation of what the cylinder head does, what the valves do, and what the advantages are to porting and I suppose some people call it gas flowing. I haven't got the full kit. I'm very old school. It's a shed. I've got an 8x6 shed with some old school kit, but it's never failed me yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to crack on, get some tools together, get my gloves on, and we'll get this engine apart. Right, got some gloves on, got the appropriate tools that we need, plenty here to choose from as well. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by taking this rocker assembly off the top, which is 3 12mm bolts. Underneath these, if you can see, these two little cups, there's a push rod, which is driven by the cam, which is down internal, because this is just overhead valve rather than overhead cam. And take that off, and that will give us access to the cylinder head bolts, the main studs that run down, which also look like 12mm, and it looks like we've got a supporting 10mm at the side, and hopefully if we undo them it should come undone. So actually quite loose. I must have had a go at these before. So, right, handy little magnetic tray, put the bolts in, just helps it so we don't lose parts when it comes to putting things back together. Because this cylinder head might not go back on this engine, it might go on the engine that's currently in the bike. I've also been contemplating buying the upsized barrel to take it from 125 to 150cc, and I think at the same time I might see what the kit comes with, what sort of comprehensive kit it is, if we can do any other mods like lightening the piston, shorten the skirts down, etc. Right, so those bolts there, and we've got a push rod stuck. There we go. That, if I get it lined up, those bits there, once those push rods move, that's what pushes down on the top of the valves, allowing your suck, squeeze, bang, blow to happen, obviously with this being a 4-stroke engine. So The important thing, we've got the inlet and exhaust push rods. What we want to do is see if they're the same length or different. These ones are the same length, so we're not having to mark them up. So now we've got the 4 bolts in the top. I can't see any more around. No, it's been a while since I've had to take the top end off one of these, so just making sure there's nothing hidden. Are they 12 or are they 10? No, 12 again. It's quite tight to give them a tap. I have to excuse the camera wobbling. Not the most chosen method. Someone would probably use either a longer bar. Some people use a little impact guns, but these bolts aren't being reused, so it's just a case of getting these undone and out of the way. There we go. Oh, there we go. Right, balance that engine back up. I'm just going to get a small extension bar. Actually, I can go back to the 3/8 drive. There we go, little look like a bolt, but technically a nut, shouldered nut, very long, because the studs underneath are what go through the barrel. Take those out with the appropriate washers. And that's the last one of them. So now we're going to have to undo this one. This one braces down, goes through. Also, we might remove that so we can show you a bit with the cam timing, etc., and how the setup on these overhead valve engines work. I'm just grab 12mm combo. Oh, that one come undone easy enough. Yep, that's that bolt out. Right, so now we've got the bolts undone. Everything, I believe, that needs to come off is off. Now these cylinders, once they're torqued down, there's a gasket in between. Once they're torqued down to the correct setting, that sandwiches really, really tight, and that also, it acts almost like a glue with what's in the material on the gasket. So that proves to be quite tough to get off sometimes. They won't just pull off. They need a little bit of force, they need a little bit of encouragement. Easiest thing to do is find an appropriate size pry bar, or you can use a block of wood, tap underneath. I always just like to have a little feel between it. Be careful not to go too mad, because what you don't want to do is break off the cooling fins on your engine, because that's a pain in the arse. You can repair them, you can get them repaired, but if you can get away without breaking it in the first place, why should you have to fix it? So that should wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. There we go. Right. Oh, full of water. Look at that. Stay that. Obviously, that's where it's been kept outside. You can see where the water's laid down, seeped past the valves. So, cylinder head's off. What we're left with is the barrel, which has it seized. That's the thing. Has that seized withstanding with the water in there? Easiest thing that you can do is turn the crank over. This has currently got its clutch basket and case off at the moment. So, I just, where is it? Screwdriver. Flat blade screwdriver, and I can just go against the splines at the drive gear on the end of the crank. Right, it is free. It was just a little bit stuck. It's not completely seized. Oh, it's a bit tough there, where it's got a bit of rust. So what we'll do, get this cylinder off now. So what we're going to do, we've got two 10mm bolts. They need to be undone. They hold the deck of the barrel down. Two 10mm bolts. Need to undo them. Combination spanner. There we go. 1, 2. Now that they're cracked, I will get the ratchet on that. That's a rarity in itself, actually finding a 10mm socket. Put those bolts in the magnetic tray. Right, this one's probably going to be a little bit tougher because that's had the pressure of the cylinder head and also the tension on the bolts. So, if we have a look, see, you can normally see if there's a place where you can get a wedge or a pry bar, give it a little lift. This one's actually coming apart quite freely. Now, the biggest thing you've got to remember when taking barrel off, obviously the piston has its own friction inside the bore because of the rings. The compression ring, this first ring, compression ring, scraper ring, or ring, whichever ring you want to call, into play. So something that you can do is bring that barrel up, and if it's stuck like this one is wanting to be because of the water that's been in there, you can find something that fits underneath the gap when you throw that up. I'm sure I've got a piece of wood somewhere. There we go, handy piece of wood. So, put the piece of wood underneath there, that's not allowing that to go down. At the same time, I'm going to get another piece of wood, because you don't want to damage the piston. On the top. Oh. And give that a tap down like so. So, you can then lift that up, and there we go, that releases. So, let's get this. You see where that rust damage is? That's just where water's been laying there. That probably will hone out. See if we can save that barrel. And then there are the two arms, the cam followers. Those points of contact there, they rotate. Sorry, they don't rotate. The camshaft rotates, which moves them like so, which would then move the push rods, which then moves the valves and allows your engine to run. All the engines apart, you want to give it a bit of a turn over, have a feel. And what you want to do is have a feel for your bottom end play. So you want to, if you can, get underneath the piston, middle fingers or index fingers onto the con rod, try and lift up and down, see what your side float is. Yeah, it seems okay. I mean, I've not got my feeler gauges on it. If you find your manual, that'll have the specified float or end float, end play that you have in your con rod between the two cranks, between the crank discs, and then you'll always get the side movement on the little end bearing because of the gap that's underneath on the gudgeon pin. And there again, different bikes vary on their tolerances. So that's pretty much it on the stripping. So the idea with porting, gas flowing, blueprinting, move that down, is to allow a smoother transfer of air in, air and fuel mixture in, and also allowing it to release quickly in a bigger volume. So if you can get more in, more out, quicker, in theory you can increase your horsepower. So what you'd do, you'd start off with your basic dimensions of your inlet port and your dimensions of your exhaust port. On a 4-stroke of something this thing, I've always been led to believe that you should go with a matched inlet and exhaust port. So for example, if you have a 30mm inlet port, you should have a 30mm exhaust port on its final opening. A lot of people believe that you should have an absolute mirror polish on the inside. That's incorrect. You want something that feels like a fine grade sandpaper, so that can be achieved by using wet and dry on the end of a spigot, in a drill going round, or in a Dremel, whichever tool that you have. That leaves a texture on the surface which allows the air and fuel mixture to mix correctly on its way in. Because what would happen if it's too smooth, the fuel vapor that comes in just lines the surface and doesn't mix properly. You want to create turbulence in there to get as close to the perfect mixture going into your engine after the carburettor. Obviously carburettor tuning has a large part in your air fuel mixed ratio. With your exhaust port, that can be polished, that can be absolutely mirror finish, because you want to get stuff out there quick. So obviously you'd go down, see if I can get this on camera for you. That'll focus. Can't really see a great deal on the exhaust port. If I show on the inlet port, you'll see where it almost comes down now, and you can see the stem of the valve. What you want to do is make sure you don't take too much material away from there. You don't want to make the valve stem and the valve guide weak if you're going to be putting an engine under more strain. In the area where your valves are, obviously you can see the tip of your spark plug. You've got your inlet, which is bigger than your exhaust. You can go into the realms of changing the valve size. This is something that's a little bit more complex in machinery, which I haven't got. So these valves will be cleaned, reprofiled and reground into the head, and I'm going to see if there's any improvements I can make into the dome of the cylinder head. Maybe even see if I get this head skimmed slightly to increase compression ratio, to run on a higher octane, and also in theory help produce more power. So cylinder head's off, valves I'll remove when I go to the workshop at work. Basically it's like a giant clamp, goes around, squashes that spring down, and there's a little collet inside there in 2 halves. It comes out, that releases the washer, the spring comes off, and you can then push the valve through. So that's it for today on this. Cylinder head's removed. I'll get some diameter measurements of the ports, and we'll start making progress on porting that head in the next video. Once again guys, I'd like to apologise for the lack of content that's been on my channel for the last year and a half. As I said in the beginning, there's been a few personal circumstances that have changed. Those I don't want to discuss on my videos. If anyone close to me has questions, I will obviously talk, because most of my close friends are like family. To people and followers like yourselves, I think it's something that shouldn't be shared right now. It's not that I want to keep secrets from you, it's just that even this far on, things are still a little bit sensitive. I may write something up for you to read rather than do it on camera, because it is quite hard to talk about. And the other thing is, I can get some things clear. Me and Mandy are still together. I didn't lose my job. We have lost members of the family, but that isn't the main reason, and it's nothing to do with my job change. It's more a personal thing that's happened with me, and I just want it to be left as it is for now, and I don't want people speculating. Like I say, I know there's a lot of people that would find this as an excuse to try and get away from these problems, but everything just came up in one go and it was just hard for me to deal with. So like I said, I apologise for the lack of content. I'm now back on my feet. I've got a laptop that works now, and I feel comfortable and happy once again to be doing these videos and talking to you. Like I say, today's video, just a little thing to get back into. It's something I had to do, and I thought, right, now's the time to get the camera out. I'd like all of you to please be patient with me. I know I've made promises before of I'll upload next week or I'll upload every month. My videos are going to be more on a basis of when the jobs come up. Hopefully the jobs that come up will be regular enough to create good content and regular enough to keep you interested. And also, I want to thank you again. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for staying on the channel. I know I haven't got the biggest following. I know a lot of you have appreciated the videos, and I'm always willing to talk. If you send me a question, I will answer. If there's something you suggest for me to do, I will try my best to do it if it's within my realms. Obviously I can't go out and buy fancy cars like Mighty Car Mods or Roadkill or anything like that. I'm nowhere near that sort of thing. I just want to be able to do what I enjoy again, and that's working in my shed, working on cars, bikes, anything with an engine and wheels, and recording it and being able to share that with you, and for you to have an interest in what I do. That's just a big thanks. I'm not doing this for money, I'm doing this as a hobby, and to be able to share it with people like yourself, it's fantastic. It's nice that hopefully I've had comments before where people are inspired to do something again. If I can do that, if I can make these people make choices that better their life, fantastic. I'm not saying that I'm going out changing the world. I just appreciate every one of you that watches these videos. So thank you. See you soon.